Hello and welcome back. In this segment, we are going to talk about uh, rational mind. And let's see. I'm going to invite Dr. Payam Kade. Uh, and he's here. Very good. Amazing. On time, as usual. Hello and welcome.
Good evening. I'm actually 1 minute early usually.
Yes,
I'm kidding.
exactly. Always you're, but sometimes more than 1 minute.
Well,
Usually
I
you
gotta
are,
make sure
yeah.
I don't mess up your program. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you. Thank you.
Very good. It's my pleasure always, talking to you. It's very
Thank you.
uh, enjoyable. I enjoy it. I enjoy
I
it a lot.
I certainly appreciate the time, and I really love to be here because I know it's important information that we share with
Yes,
all of your
absolutely.
viewers,
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So, Dr. Kate,
of course.
uh, what's the definition of rational mind?
That's a very good question. It is very broad. I'm going to make it very simple, as simple as I can.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously, when we talk about rational thinking and rational mind,
Mm-hmm.
we can't just look at it from a social aspect or psychological aspect or economical aspect. Every single different type of science has a different answer for rational thinking or rational mind, right? But if we try to make some sense out of it,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the ability of a person to consider a different relevant variables in their thoughts. What do
Right.
I mean by that? It means when they think about something, when you start thinking about something, you got to be able to organize it. You have to be able to analyze it. You have to basically do a kind of a fact check
Right.
to see if they look at different variables, right? You have to brainstorm it a little bit. You have to check it against a lot of body of evidence. And of course, a majority of the time, unfortunately, we think just because we are intelligent, we are doing some form of rational thinking, but we're not, because
Right.
human beings don't work that way. When we think about something, depending on the situation, and this is very important, depending on the situation, your thought process changes. What do I mean by that? Meaning that instead of thinking with your mind first, it goes through your emotional thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that makes sense. So
Absolutely.
before it actually comes into your mind, so that you can organize it, analyze it, and fact check it, put it against other variables to make sure that's actually a rational thinking, meaning it will come to a outcome or a conclusion that you were looking for and that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It goes to your feeling. So if they bring you next to a river and the water is running at 200 miles an hour and they want to throw you out into the river and they say, well, you're going to have a great time, the first thought that comes to your mind usually it's not like I'm going to have a great time. The first thing that comes to your mind is your fear and all of that stuff, right? So you're basically your thinking immediately goes into what is going to happen to me next. That's where the
So,
thinking is going to be. If you have had experience jumping into the river 50 times, it's not going to go there because you already know you're going to have a great time. You've experienced it before. Fantastic. You jump in and you get wet. You're going to have a great time. But
mm-hmm.
for majority of the people, when they get to that stage, they don't really check it or fact check it with any reason that they have that would tell them it's going to be fun. They usually put it against their past experiences,
Mm-hmm.
what they have learned about water and river that is running that fast, and all of the above, right? So
Right.
they may have a totally different conclusion in a matter of seconds, which is really not rational reasoning. It's just a rationalization for what they're thinking.
Right. And
And
now,
it's the
go
same
ahead.
way we rationalize a lot of other things.
Right, makes sense. So, how do we go from feeling to rational thinking?
Um, that is a very good question. Now, a lot of people, and I think when I say a lot of people, it includes myself, right? Um, we feel a certain way and we act sort of a certain way to make sure we secure or protect our feeling. So,
Right.
or we can get ourselves out of that feeling if it's a negative feeling. If it's a good feeling, we make sure we do something that perpetuates that feeling and we feel more of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you're thinking rationally means that you can feel a certain way, but you act in a different way for a better outcome. So rational thinking is about thinking about the outcome. Is this going to lead to a better outcome? If it doesn't, then I should act a different way. Not because I feel this way, so I should act on my feelings. And that requires intelligence, that requires sort of an ability for you to be able to shift and
Mm-hmm.
understand your emotional intelligence, because emotional intelligence helps you not act in a certain way to get a result that is not going to be good for you or it's not going to lead to a good outcome. I hope what I'm saying makes sense. But
Right.
because majority of the time, sometimes, let's say you go into a classroom and you get a bad experience from the kids in the class, or
Mm-hmm.
you get a bad experience, or you feel something is not happening, it's not working for you. You
Right.
come out and you go to the administrative office and you say, I want to drop the class. Is that a good thing for you? Perhaps not. Just because you felt a certain way does not mean the outcome of the class could not be good for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's where your rational reasoning behind it should come into play, should look into different variables and see, is this class going to give me what I want? I need 5 units to graduate. Should I take this class? If my outcome, which is supposed to be a good outcome, is for me to graduate, then my feelings about the kids and other students and the teachers should not play a big part here. I should be able to put that aside and still concentrate and pay attention to other variables that are extremely important in my life. And some of them could be maybe not known at this point. I just know based on a body of evidence, right? Other people have taken this class and they have graduated and they went to university or whatever. Based on body of evidence, based on facts, based on other analyzed, organized thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
I can come to the conclusion that if I do this, I'm going to graduate as well. So
Mm-hmm.
then I will make that decision. So I don't act on my feeling, I act on my logical reasoning, rational thinking. And there's a distinction between the two.
You're right, right. So, why do we need to do that rational thinking?
Uh, because oftentimes we fall into pitfalls,
Mm-hmm.
and I can say, uh, let's examine a child, a
Okay.
6-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
The 6-year-old has experienced life for just about only 6 years, right?
6 years, right?
Majority of the experiences that a child has, a 6-year-old, is based on what they've experienced that has been good or bad. Meaning, if they have experienced fear, or
Mm-hmm.
they have experienced no fear, and they have experienced emotion and excitement, right? So
Right.
the decision a 6-year-old makes is based on that. A 6-year-old does not use a bad word in front of you because she or he may know that she may receive punishment.
Mm-hmm.
So their thinking is, I shouldn't do that. A 6-year-old may ask for ice cream with a smile because if she knows, if she smiles, they're going to say, oh my God, so cute. You're going to give him an ice cream. So it's based on past experiences. When we grow up, we carry those experiences with us. We carry our justifications, we carry our past experiences, we carry our prior past learnings, or flawed learnings, is what I call it, without even knowing it. We bring our biases into it, right? And some of the biases, we have talked about this before. We have
Right.
implicit biases that we don't even know about. It's there. We have our own fears that we bring our own fears into play. We also bring our own justifications. Let's say you see someone that is very good looking and you're like, okay, I have to have her as my girlfriend. She's
Okay.
extremely cute. She's
Mm-hmm.
gorgeous, right?
Right.
So you justify, instead of rational reasoning, you will do justification.
Mm-hmm.
So it's called rationalization. You
Right.
rationalize to justify why this relationship is going to work for me,
Right.
right? That is exactly why rational thinking should be part of a life experience and part of a human being thinking process and moving forward in life. Because oftentimes, like based on all this stuff that I just said, you go based on your fears, your past experiences, your biases, and all of that stuff, and you make a decision, and then you rationalize it for yourself, and you say, well, it's a good thing. Well, other people have had this type of relationship. They didn't die. I'm not going to die either. And then you jump into it. And then
Right.
6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years passes, or maybe you even get married. Then you're like, oh my God, I'm not happy. This is not working. Because at the time that maybe you should have, right? You should have fact checked to see if this is going to be a relationship that is going to work for you. Is this the person that is right for you?
Right.
Meaning, I look at different variables to see if my life, my values, my system of thought, my all of that stuff, are they going to be compatible to the person that is coming into my life? If I put my blueprint on her blueprint, do they
Mm-hmm.
even come close to each other? Am I rationalizing that it's okay if they're not, or am I really using logical reasoning and
Mm-hmm.
rational thinking to see if these two blueprints will match? So obviously, when we pick a person without all of the variables and we just go based on she's gorgeous, I have to have her, we're not really using any logic, right? We're just
Right.
the thinking is going through our emotional feeling, and based on that, we come up with a rationalization why we should have her
Right.
or have him, whatever is the preference of the person, right?
Amazing. Absolutely. So, uh, we have a question here from our audience. So, if you want to give us the key, what's the best key? That's it. I don't know. It makes it.
Best key of how to think
I think yeah,
rationally,
because
right?
he
Okay,
just he just wrote it
right.
this.
I'm assuming because the majority of people that's their question, right? So
Right.
I would say something that I do myself instead of immediately coming to a conclusion,
Mm-hmm.
I put a stop to my thought
Mm-hmm.
and I take a step back and I start thinking what other variables, in my opinion, I would do deductive reasoning and inductive reasoning. I don't want to go into details of those two because it's going to take a long time to go into that. Like Socrates used a lot of deductive reasoning to
Mm-hmm.
prove a point.
Right.
What I'm talking about is very simple. I would look at it as how much body of evidence is out there to prove that what my rational thinking or my reasoning is going to make sense. For example, if I say to you, if it rains tonight, grass is going to get wet.
Mm-hmm.
Most likely, 95% of your viewers are going to say, yes, it's true, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because it's so close to fact, it's
Right.
almost indisputable that if it rains, it's going to get wet. And if I tell you it's going to rain for 10 days, we may get flooded. Majority of the people are going to say, depending on the amount of rain, we may get flooded. So now, this statement, this second statement,
Mm-hmm.
could be true, could also not be true. It could be several
Exactly.
days of just little rain, no big deal, we may not get flooded. Or we
Right.
may have a serious rain coming down and we may get flooded. So now we have to look at other variables. Other variables meaning I'm going to organize this and I'm going to say how much rain is coming down.
Right.
I'm going to check it with the body of evidence of the past. If this much rain has came in the past, did it result in a flood? Did the city get flooded? If it did, then there is a greater chance or a greater probability that we're going to get flooded, right? So whenever a thought comes to mind, I would ask people, and if it's my client, for example, I would ask them based on what rational reasoning, meaning how many variables can you give me
Mm-hmm.
that would tell me that your thinking is actually very close to fact or it's reliable. And somebody else can look at it and say, well, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Or that's absolute fact, right? I will ask them to check that rather than, oh, because it just feels great. Or I've seen other people do it. It's fantastic. Look at the vaccine issue right now, or look at all of the stuff that we have in today's world, right? A lot of people say, well, the pandemic is a hoax. Are they really doing a fact check out there? I don't know. I'm not trying to put anybody down or say somebody's right or wrong. Did they do
Mm-hmm.
their fact check? Did they end up in a hospital to see what's going on with those people? Or are they
Right.
just looking at the news or looking at their friends or news media or whatever source that they have? Is it really fact checked? Is it reliable? Is it organized? Have they analyzed it? Sometimes we don't. Why? Because we have certain biases. Depending on whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you may believe in the virus or you may not. You may believe in wearing a mask or you may not. You may believe in voting for a certain person or you may not. This is not really rational thinking, or at least I can say 80% of it is not, because you're not considering many relevant variables into this process. You're just going based on certain variables that make sense to you. It may not
Right.
work for a lot of other people, but it certainly would work for you, right?
Right. Amazing. Thank you so much. And we have a
Of course.
message from our viewer, the viewer number 1711. And he or she said, I'm 19 and your speech is amazing. You're awesome.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. Well, that's
Thank you.
probably because she probably hasn't really heard anybody else. She thinks mine is amazing.
No, you are amazing as usual. Thank you so much. Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you.
I
I
appreciate.
appreciate it. I hope this was helpful.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, it is. Thank you so much, and I hope to see
Thank
you
you.
very soon.
I hope so too.
We miss you, and we had lots of messages,
Thank
and
you. I
everybody
miss you
asking
too.
what happened to Dr. Kate, and Dr. Kate is here again. Thank you, and see you next time.
I appreciate it. Honestly, I just finished work, so I joined you.
Thank you,
I'll be with
Alfred.
you again for sure. My pleasure.
Thank,
Have a
thank
good
you.
evening, Mr.
You
Amir.
too.
Bye bye.
You too. Bye bye.
Thank you.